Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Hellwig rear anti-sway bar here on our 2024 Entegra Odyssey Class C motorhome. So when it comes to driving around in your motorhome, you probably notice the very first thing is that it doesn't really ride that well. You got a big bulky exterior here that's not really aerodynamic. It's just these big flat walls, and you get a lot of wind pressure and wind resistance when you're just driving on its own. Not even including the crosswinds that you're getting, or if it's just a really windy day out, you're really kind of pushing around your motorhome body here, and then that's going to throw off how your handling is. Another thing with these motorhomes is you might have a lot of stuff kind of weighed onto one side versus the other, so that really kind of adds more to that teeter-totter feeling when you're driving down the road. So the way to kind of mitigate that issue and make the ride quality a lot more comfortable is going to be adding in a much thicker anti-sway bar. And what that's going to do is help kind of correct that issue. So when you start to kind of lean more to one side, that sway bar is going to want to pull it right back up to its normal position. It's going to keep fighting that sway every single time you have it. So that way you can kind of stay more on course. You'll have the rear axle here kind of really follow you around. It's a really hard feeling to describe. I'm going to probably say that multiple times throughout this video, but honestly, this is one of the best upgrades that you can make for your motorhome. So now that we're down in the shop, we can give you a closer look at our new sway bar, which has been installed already, and kind of compare it to our factory one. So the factory one is only 1 1/8 thick, whereas our new one is 1.5 inches. So we are getting an extra 3/8 inches out of our new one here, and that's going to make a major difference when it comes to our handling. Now, one of the best upgrades you can do, in my opinion, for any vehicle is throw on that rear sway bar. I've done it myself on my truck. Made a world of difference in how it feels handling wise, and just how it tracks behind you when you're trying to make some turns or when you're dealing with those sway issues. Now with this one, it is going to be made of a 4140 chromoly steel, which is designed with a high tensile strength. And what that means is it's going to be able to handle all of those shifting and sway events where it's kind of bending the bar up and down, which you can see here. That's what kind of pulls on those end links a lot of the time here, and it's going to be able to actually bounce back and maintain that for the life of the motorhome. You shouldn't really run into any issues with the bar itself. Typically what I see when it comes to maintenance issues, it's always going to be with your end links and your bushings. So we've got 2 bushings at the end of our bars here. So we got these 2 guys. Those are your potential wear points. You might need to come back and just double check that tightness every once in a while, and that can kind of give you an indication, hey, maybe these are starting to kind of wear out and they need to be replaced. And then the bushings that are at our axle tube, so that's what's actually holding up the bar with our D-shaped brackets. And these, after a while, you're probably going to run out of the lubrication that's inside of here. You might need to reach back out to Hellwig, get yourself another packet of that, and you can just pop out the 2 bolts here at the back, drop down 1 bracket at a time, re-lubricate that bushing and put it back into place. But like I said, this should last you the life of the motorhome without any issues. As far as doing the installation on this motorhome, it is a breeze compared to a majority of the other ones that I've done in the past. This one, you don't really even need to be on a lift. You actually want to be on the suspension, so you want to have all that weight kind of bearing down on it so it doesn't throw off where your bar is going to sit. If you are lifting by the frame and you kind of separate that to give yourself more working space, what's going to happen is you might find that the bar ends up hitting in certain spots where it shouldn't, and we can throw off where it's going to sit with our end links, so it's not going to sit level. This is something you could definitely do at home, but if you just don't feel like doing this, maybe you don't have the tools or the time and you got a big trip coming up, definitely feel free to use our dealer locator, and you can enter in your zip code to find a shop near you and get it professionally installed. If you are wanting to install it yourself, then stick around and I'll help walk you through the process. So starting off our install, we should be removing our factory sway bar. Now ours is already removed. We do still have it with us, which is great, so I can actually use this as a comparison and show you the difference that our new Hellwig sway bar is going to make. Along with that, we are reusing some hardware, so we definitely need to have that back with us to tie into our axle bracket, which is up here. You can see there's weld nuts in the frame here and here on both sides. So we want to make sure that we have our hardware. Now how this was actually bolted up before was those 4 smaller bolts were going through these D-shaped bushing brackets, and that was tying into those weld nuts. Now on the side of our frame rails, we also had these bolts going in through the end links, and then that was just tying into, yet again, another weld nut. So If you're taking these off, if you have to do this at your house too with your sway bar, then what you're going to want to do is use a 13mm socket on the shorter, smaller bolts that are going into our D-shaped brackets. And for the longer bolts for our end links, you're going to need a 15mm socket. Once you get those out, you can drop the bar down and set your hardware aside for usage later on. And we can get our old sway bar out of the way. And like I said, I am going to show you both these side by side so that way you can get a better comparison. Kind of just see the big difference here. But for now, we'll get that out of the way. Let's get our new sway bar all prepped and ready to go. So here's our new sway bar and some of the bushings. And what we're going to do first here is that we are supposed to lubricate the inside of our D-shaped bushings, which actually clamp on to our sway bar and then help us mount up to the axle bracket using this spacer plate and then this other D-shaped mounting bracket. Now, I don't like getting my hands dirty a bunch of different times, so I'm also going to lubricate the bushings for our end links as well as the sleeves that are going to slide into them. So I've got my packets of lubricant, and I'm going to just put a good healthy glob inside of our D-shaped bushings, and I'm going to smear those around, and then I'll get to the other ones. Now, once you have it lubricated, take your bushings, you're going to press those into the eyelet of your end link, just like so, and then you can take your sleeve, you'll slide that in as well. Now, if you're having a problem pushing it in and you have a bench vise, it'll make it a lot easier. Just finish that off. All right, next we can take our D-shaped bushings, we're going to pop those onto our sway bar. And we want that right here at the end of that curve, this little straight part here. That's where it's going to match up with our axle. And then at this point, now is where I like to swap out my gloves or wash my hands, just because that lubricant is pretty sticky. All right, so I've thrown my D-shaped bracket onto my bushing. I've kind of pushed them out a little bit further towards the edge so it'll line up a little bit better. We also have our spacer plate. That is going to live between our bracket and between the axle, and then the 4 included bolts, we're going to be putting that through and tightening that up into the weld nut that's on our axle here. So I've got Matt with me to help me out here because this is a little awkward to hold up and do all by yourself. Oh. We'll get these up into place. Got our bracket, our spacer, one of our bolts, and start threading that in. Once we get a couple threads on each one, that should help hold up the sway bar for us. Now that we have all 4 bolts in, I'm going to snug them up just a bit, but I'm not going to fully tighten them just yet because we do need a little bit of wiggle room here. So you can see like the sway bar can move up and down. I don't want to constrict that too much by tightening these bolts to where then I can't get it level so that I can get my end links on. Next, we'll take our end link. We're going to be passing the factory bolt that we took out through there into our frame rail again. Now, they don't list that you need to put on a flat washer, but in the pictures that they have, they clearly have put on a flat washer, and it almost looks like they're not even using the factory bolt. More so it looks like they're just using the new bolts that they gave you for the D-shaped brackets, but I'm going to throw that on there because there's 2 of these left over with the rest of the end link hardware, so that kind of tells me that most likely it is needed. Now, when we're putting this up, we want to make sure that we have it kind of angling in towards the bottom because we got to kind of come around our frame, come through by the leaf spring pack, and then get down into our sway bar here. So we're going to come back up to the side of the frame, that same hole that we took it out of, which is a weld nut. So pretty simple, just pop it right back in. We'll tighten that back down. We don't need to go super tight. I'm just going to go hand tight for right now because we do still need to get everything level here first. And I think I want to go over our emergency brake or parking brake here just so I can not have that kind of rub against that. Or maybe I might zip tie that up a little bit higher. So I've got my hardware all laid out here for threading onto our end link. We're going to start off with our smaller little jam nut here. From there, we're going to thread on the hex nut. Then we'll put on a flat washer. From there, we're going to have bushings, and these are going to have a little bump out, and that needs to go into the hole in our sway bar, which you can see right here. So you can see it's a little pretty wide. That's going to sink right into there, and then these are going to get kind of pinched down once we start tightening down those nuts. On the other side of our sway bar, we're going to then have another bushing, flat washer, and then we'll finally have our nylock nut. Now there is a certain measurement with this too, so I'm going to run this up quite a bit just to start with on the jam nut and hex nut, and then from there we can kind of bring it down to where it actually needs to be, but at the same time we also want to make sure our sway bar is parallel with the ground. So I've got a level on it right now, and once we kind of figure out where we want it to sit, we can use that level to just double check, make sure we actually have it where it needs to be, because right now looks like right about that height right there is level for us. So we got a ways to thread up on this still. Looks like a little burr on the end of this. All right, I'm going to be using a 22 millimeter socket. I'm going to snug the lock nut up just a bit more, get this kind of raised, because we still got a ways to go to get level here. But what they're looking for with this lock nut is that it is about a ½ inch of thread sticking out past it. So we've got a ways to go here. Check that with the tape measure. We are about a thread away from a ½ inch. There we go, I'm happy with that. Now, we can also double check with our level. So we still aren't fully level. Now, I'm not fully on the suspension like I should be technically. They do want you to have the suspension fully resting, or the weight of the vehicle essentially resting all the way on the suspension here. So that way it kind of dips down a little bit more. I'd say we're probably a little bit closer, but I think I'm going to go up a little bit higher too. I'm going to go a little bit over that ½ inch that they're wanting, just because we do want to keep that as level as possible, like I said. All right, so I've gotten it to a point where it's level now. Now I am going to use my 7/8 wrench, and we're going to keep tightening down the hex nut until from outer edge to outer edge of these two flat washers is about 1.5 inches. And I'm about 1/8 of an inch off, so I got a little ways to go here. Check it now. I am right at 1.5 inches, so we can stop. And now the next step is dropping this jam nut down and then snugging that as tight as we can up against our hex nut. That way it can't loosen. And now we're going to repeat this process over on the other side. All right, now it's time to come back and torque all of our hardware. For the D mounts, those are going to be a 17 millimeter socket. And then for the end links up top in our frame rail, it's going to be a 15 millimeter socket. And if you don't know what the torque value is for the bolts here, they have it listed by bolt size on the very first page of your instructions. So now with all of our hardware torque, that is going to do it for the install portion of this. We do still want to kind of shake the vehicle a little bit. I'm not going to do that while we're up on the left here, but once we're down on the ground, I'll kind of push down the bumper. And what we're looking for is just, as this suspension compresses, we want to make sure that we're not rubbing up against anything or hitting any kind of lines or wire harnesses or anything with our sway bar. Like I said, with the parking brake here, I'm going to run a zip tie up to the frame and just kind of pull that so it's away from the end link here. But I also got to be careful because I don't want to really have it rubbing against our spring pack either. So I'm going to handle that separately, and then from there, it's just going to be kind of routine maintenance on this. So once in a while, especially after the first week, you want to come back down, just recheck all your torque values here, make sure each one of your bolts is nice and tight, and then also just kind of do a once over on those jam nuts too, make sure nothing loosened up just from that initial week of usage. And then after that, it's going to be typically like once a trip maybe. It really just kind of depends on your usage with the vehicle. but it shouldn't be too much to just kind of get on there with a torque wrench, check it real quick, and just be on your way. Well, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Hellwig rear anti-sway bar here on our 2024 Entegra Odyssey Class C motorhome. My name's Kevin, and if you still have some questions about what's going to be the right rear anti-sway bar for your motorhome, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.